The greatest tragedy in life is not death. It is living your whole life trying to be someone you were never born to be. My friend, let me ask you a question. Who told you that fitting in was success? Who convinced you that your uniqueness was a liability instead of a gift? You were not designed to blend in, you were born to stand out. Fish were born to swim, birds were born to fly. You were born to be different. God never duplicates purpose. If He made you original, why are you trying so hard to be a copy? Let me tell you something that will shatter the lies you've believed about yourself. You were not mass-produced. You were not put together on some spiritual assembly line. Heaven custom designed you, tailor-made, handcrafted in the eternal mind of God before your mother ever knew your name. You are not a product of biology. You are a product of intentionality. You didn't begin when your parents came together. You began in the mind of God long before time even started. You were born because something that only you carried was needed in the earth. And until you become who you were born to be, there is a gap in history that remains unfilled. Don't you dare think you're random. You're rare. You're necessary. And yes, you are different. Because what God placed in you cannot be mass-produced or outsourced. The greatest mistake we make is comparing ourselves with others who were never called to do what we were born to do. You're trying to copy blueprints that were never meant to build your life. That's why it doesn't fit. That's why you feel frustrated. Because your soul knows it wasn't made to imitate, it was made to initiate. You don't need permission to be yourself. You don't need applause to activate your calling. The approval of people is too cheap a price to pay for the value of your difference. When God wanted a David, He didn't look for another Saul. When God wanted a Mary, He didn't search for another Elizabeth. Every assignment comes with a vessel, and you are that vessel. He told Jeremiah, "Before I formed you, I knew you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations." Do you understand what that means? You were known, formed, set apart, and appointed before you were even born. So how dare you reduce yourself to a trend? How dare you shrink your destiny to fit someone else's comfort? How dare you bury your uniqueness because you're afraid it might make others uncomfortable? Your difference is not just tolerated by heaven, it's celebrated. It's heaven's strategy for earth. God solved a problem by sending you here. And the moment you try to become someone else, that problem remains unsolved. That's why the enemy attacks your identity, because he knows if you ever embrace your difference, you'll become unstoppable. You won't just live, you'll ignite movements. You won't just exist, you'll shift atmospheres. Because when the real you shows up, everything that's been waiting on you begins to rise. So stop apologizing for who you are. Stop editing yourself to make others comfortable. And start walking like someone who knows. I was born to be different because I was born to make a difference. Conformity is the silent assassin of destiny. You don't feel it right away. It doesn't come with a scream, it comes with a smile. It whispers in your ear, just fit in. Don't rock the boat. Don't be too bold, too different, too much. And if you listen long enough, you'll shrink your soul to wear a life that was never cut for you. The system of this world thrives on uniformity. It rewards sameness. It celebrates replicas. It trains you from childhood to color inside the lines, follow the crowd, and never ask why. But here's the danger. When you conform, you trade your calling for comfort. You surrender your originality to be accepted by people who don't even know who they are. Let me ask you, what are you conforming to that's killing your calling? The Apostle Paul didn't suggest this lightly. He said, do not be conformed to this world. Why? Because he knew the pressure to fit in is one of the greatest enemies to transformation. You cannot transform what you're trying to become like. You cannot lead what you're trying to impress. And you will never fulfill your purpose trying to win the approval of a system you were born to challenge. Jesus didn't come to conform, he came to disrupt. He didn't walk with the Pharisees, he flipped their tables. He didn't follow the religious trends, he broke them with kingdom truth. And you, made in his image, were not designed to blend in with systems of compromise. You were built to represent a higher government. That's why many of you feel the internal tension. You show up to places where your spirit doesn't settle, and instead of questioning the environment, you question yourself. But could it be that your discomfort is confirmation? Could it be that your resistance is not rebellion, but revelation? You're not broken, you're not rebellious, you're just awakening to the reality that you were never meant to conform, you were born to confront. Do you really think Moses could have delivered Israel if he conformed to Pharaoh's house? Do you think Daniel could have influenced Babylon if he bowed to their idols? Every man and woman who did something that mattered had to make a decision. Will I bow to culture or will I stand for the kingdom? Conformity is easy, but it is expensive. Because every time you conform, you bury the version of you the world is waiting on. Every time you silence your conviction to avoid conflict, you dim the light that was meant to expose darkness. And every time you choose comfort over calling, you give away authority for acceptance. Don't sell your difference just to be liked. Don't sacrifice your truth just to be invited. Don't trade your voice just to stay in the room. You were not born to fit the mold, you were born to break it. You don't need their platform when you carry heaven's assignment. Because when God stamps his approval on your identity, the approval of man becomes irrelevant. So I dare you. Dare to think differently. Dare to speak differently. Dare to live differently. Because the world doesn't change by those who conform, it changes by those who refuse to. Your calling will never fit inside the expectations of the crowd. It was never meant to, because divine assignments are not handed out to the comfortable, they are given to the courageous. God does not give out purpose based on popularity, he gives it based on potential. And when he calls you, he doesn't ask the crowd for permission. Your calling will challenge the norm, confront tradition, and defy what is familiar. It will make people uncomfortable, not because it's wrong, but because it exposes their comfort zones. When you start walking in what God placed on your life, the very people who once celebrated you may start to question you. That's the price of obedience. David didn't become king by imitating Saul. He became king by embracing what made him different. Saul had armor, protocol, and military experience. David had a slingshot, a shepherd's heart, and confidence in a God the army had forgotten. And when Goliath stood before Israel, it wasn't Saul's strength that saved them. It was the courage of someone who dared to be different. You see, when God gives you a calling, it will often look foolish to those still clinging to the system. People who say, you're too young, you don't have the qualifications, no one has done it like that before. Good, that's exactly why you're needed. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called, and the very thing they mock is usually the thing God intends to use. Abraham had to leave everything familiar, his land, his relatives, his comfort, to become the father of nations. Noah had to build an ark before it had ever rained. Joseph had to dream while in chains. Esther had to risk death to enter the king's court. None of them fit the mold. None of them were understood. But all of them were chosen. So if you feel like you don't fit in, maybe it's because you weren't meant to. If your vision doesn't match the current pattern, maybe God's giving you a new one. If you feel resistance, that might be the very evidence that you're stepping into territory the enemy thought you would never claim. And listen to me. If you keep trying to be normal, you will forfeit the supernatural. If you keep trying to fit the mold, you will never break the cycles. You cannot cast out Goliaths with Saul's armor. You must pick up the stones that God placed in your hands and trust that what makes you different is what gives you victory. So let them talk, let them doubt, let them question, because when your calling breaks through, the same mouths that criticize will be forced to confess. Surely the hand of God is on their life. They are to be different. Because difference isn't just your style, it's your strategy. Before God reveals you, He will refine you. And that refining happens in isolation. You see, greatness is never born on the stage. It is forged in the secret place. Before God can trust you with influence, He must first test you with silence. He has to know, can you still believe when no one is clapping? Can you still obey when no one is watching? Can you still pursue purpose when you feel like you're walking alone? Isolation is not punishment, it's preparation. And some of you are rebuking a season that God has ordained. You're calling it loneliness, but heaven calls it development. You think you've been forgotten, but actually, God has hidden you. Moses spent 40 years in Pharaoh's palace learning the system. But before he could lead people out of it, he had to spend another 40 years in the wilderness, unlearning it. And that wilderness wasn't a waste. It was where God stripped him of Egypt so he could fill him with the kingdom. Joseph was thrown into a pit by his brothers, sold as a slave and locked in prison. But even in isolation, God was with him. He didn't need a crowd. He needed character. Because the palace can't hold you if your private life is weak. Elevation without preparation is the recipe for collapse. Look at Jesus. Before his public ministry began, he was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, not by the devil, by the Spirit. Why? Because before he faced the crowds, he had to face himself. Before he stood before the people, he had to stand alone with his Father. Don't despise the silence. That's where God sharpens your voice. Don't run from the wilderness. That's where God breaks the parts of you that won't survive the next level. And don't fear the hidden seasons, because when God hides you, it means you are valuable. Diamonds are hidden, gold is buried, oil is pressed in secret. You want a platform, but God wants to build a foundation. And until the foundation is deep enough, He will not let you rise too high, because He loves you too much to let you crumble. So if you find yourself in a season where doors aren't opening, where people don't understand you, where the spotlight feels far away, rejoice. That means God is working. He's cultivating. He's proving you in private so He can trust you in public. Because when God brings you out of hiding, no man will be able to deny it. When He releases you, you won't need to promote yourself. Your fruit will speak. And when He sends you, every ounce of pain from the isolation will become power in the revelation. Dare to be different, even when it means walking alone. Because those who walk with God in the wilderness will one day lead nations. Through it, Let me tell you something that religion doesn't always explain. Opposition is not the evidence of failure. It is often the confirmation of assignment. If you are walking in your divine purpose and you face no resistance, I would encourage you to double check who sent you. Because every true assignment comes with adversaries. The moment you step out of the crowd, you become a target. The moment you say yes to destiny, hell assigns a no to follow you. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. The presence of warfare is proof that you are carrying something dangerous. You are not under attack because you are weak. You are under attack because you are loaded. Let's talk kingdom now. Every time you rise to become what God intended, you threaten a system that preferred you broken, silent, and enslaved. Pharaoh doesn't chase Israelites until they begin to leave Egypt. Goliath doesn't show up until David steps forward. And the storm didn't hit the disciples until Jesus said, "Let us go to the other side." That means the storm was not random, it was a reaction to movement. You've got to understand this. Your difference intimidates what is comfortable, and your vision threatens what is stagnant. Some people are not fighting you, they're fighting the truth that your life reminds them of. When you dare to be different, you expose the mediocrity they've learned to tolerate. And hear me clearly, opposition is never final. It's not your wall, it's your workout. It's not your prison, it's your process. What you're facing is not meant to stop you, it's meant to shape you. God uses giants to reveal kings. He uses fire to reveal purity. He uses storms to build trust. And he uses resistance to prepare rulers. Stop asking God to remove the pressure and start asking him to reveal the purpose in it. You weren't designed to break. You were built to push through. The kingdom doesn't retreat in the face of conflict. It advances by force. And when you carry God's vision, rejection is part of the path. Betrayal is part of the pruning. Isolation is part of the instruction. And resistance is part of the training. So don't cry when the attacks come. Don't be discouraged when doors close. Don't lose heart when the critics speak. It only means you're getting close. So let them push against you. Let them try to shut you down. Let them say it can't be done. Because when God is with you, even the Red Sea must make room. You are not fragile. You are a warrior. You were anointed for this. And when resistance shows up, don't shrink, rise. Because the pressure you feel today is preparing the authority you'll walk in tomorrow. You were never designed to blend into the world. You were created to represent a kingdom. And if you truly understand that, then being different is not optional, it's essential. Because you cannot carry divine power and live by human patterns. You cannot manifest heavenly authority and walk according to earthly trends. If you are going to fulfill what God placed inside of you, you must make a conscious, relentless decision. I will not compromise my distinction to gain acceptance. Listen to me. Being different is not just about personality. It's about responsibility. It means you've been entrusted with something sacred. When God marks you, he expects you to live according to that mark. You don't get the luxury of mediocrity. You don't get to waste time chasing things that don't carry eternal weight. Because when heaven places an assignment on your life, every step, every word, every decision carries kingdom consequence. Let me take it deeper. You are not on earth to take sides. You are here to take over. That means you don't just exist to survive, you exist to govern. And in the kingdom, difference is the currency of influence. God doesn't use echo chambers. He raises voices. He doesn't use imitators. He sends ambassadors. But here's the tragedy. Too many people die full of dreams, full of callings, full of divine ideas that were buried in the grave of conformity. Why? Because they never made the decision to live with bold distinction. They feared rejection more than they feared disobedience. They wanted to be included more than they wanted to be effective. But not you, not now, not anymore. You must decide that your life will not be a reaction to culture, it will be a reflection of the kingdom. You must decide to walk differently, talk differently, lead differently, think differently, because normal is not your portion. God called you to be light in darkness, salt in decay, a city on a hill that cannot be hidden. And I don't care what your past looks like. I don't care how many times you failed. God is not looking for perfect vessels. He's looking for available ones. The power is in the decision. Heaven doesn't respond to potential. It responds to pursuit. So the question is not, are you different? The real question is, are you willing to live in that difference, even when it costs you everything? Because your destiny demands distinction, and the world doesn't need more of the same. It needs someone bold enough to stand up, step out, and say, I was born to be different, and I will not die a copy. I dare you. Dare to believe that your difference is divine. Dare to say no to fitting in and yes to standing out. Dare to show up in rooms where you feel too different, because that's the room God sent you to change. And above all, dare to be what God had in mind when He created you with no backup plan. Because the world doesn't need another echo. It needs a voice. Your voice